I know a lot of people have mentioned to me that they had a huge crush on Keanu Reeves and wished Johnny could have been a romance in Cyberpunk. I totally get that. I mean, many of you have probably seen my Illithid romance video and can see the potential for romance here with the rocker boy resurrected. But in Johnny's case, we're not just talking some entity that you can communicate with through your dreams, we're talking a complete construct of someone else's psyche in your head that you can communicate with at will, and vice versa. Can you even imagine the possibilities for a romance with someone like that? I mean, sure, you'd never be able to actually physically be together, but it wouldn't be entirely fantasy either. Johnny is actually present there with V, and I'd argue it's the most intimate relationship in the entire game, even though not slotted as a traditional romance option. Fair warning before I continue here, there are spoilers inc., since Johnny is a very integral part of the story. So, if I'm being honest, when I first played Cyberpunk back in late 2020, I was not comfortable with the idea of Johnny at all. A lot had happened, and my V's life had essentially unraveled in every possible way. The heist failed miserably, Jackie died, V died, and then somehow V has a dream of some rocker's life and wakes up from death in a landfill? After being nursed back to health by Vic, you then have to come to terms with the newfound knowledge that you don't have long to live. That the biochip is rewriting your brain for the new construct to take over your very body. That's a tough pill to swallow for most people, I think. For me especially, as I really value my individuality and independence. The idea of having some parasite in my brain taking me over like body snatchers was uncomfortable to say the least. Doesn't this feel like some kind of weird parallel to Baldur's Gate 3 though? But obviously this is different. It's way more direct. This incarnation of the chip comes to you directly, and not just in your dreams like the Dream Lover in BG3. I've gotta say, it felt like some cruel twist of fate, though, to have beaten death, only to be assimilated in the end by a long-dead rock star. And especially after that initial scene in your apartment, where Johnny outright attacks V like some caged animal, even threatening to kill you, he comes off as erratic and kind of nuts, asking what kind of joy toy you are and then pushing you under the ground and asking who you work for. He doesn't seem to have any idea what's going on, and there's finally some realization when he sees your hands through your eyes and realizes, hey, he's on the chip in your head. He then says he'll take control of your body, that he'll find a way to take over as he's banging your head on the window. He insists that you take a gun to your head to end the situation. I mean, wow. This was a horrible first impression for me. I saw this guy as a complete nightmare, a hostile entity. I resisted him at every chance I got for a good chunk of the game because of that initial interaction. I didn't trust him one bit and thought he was just playing me so that he could find his chance to assume control of V's body. He felt like a lurking predator just waiting for the first opportunity, the first sign of weakness to get his way. I didn't like Johnny, not one bit. He seemed self-serving, and his righteous attitude turned me off, as though his opinions were absolute and the only thing that mattered. Whether that opinion was Takamura being a dog that followed orders with no chance for meaningful value to V past his usefulness, or thinking the simple destruction of Arasaka was all the world needed to magically become better again. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that in some ways he wasn't right, but I dislike the attitude of having all of your eggs in just one basket. I don't like when people become so entrenched in an idea that they won't even consider all of the gray areas around it. Sometimes there are just elements we don't see, and there is no perfect solution to any complex problem. When Johnny turns around and suddenly decides he wants to save V's life, I just didn't trust it. He's still talking about destroying Arasaka and how to do it, but it sounds incredibly far-fetched. Like, how the heck am I ever going to be able to do any of that, dude? I can't say when I finally began to trust Johnny. If I'm being honest, I didn't trust him much throughout my entire first playthrough. I really fell in love with Takamura's character, and I decided I would follow his path and see where it led me. And Johnny didn't really like that too much. There were moments that I felt Johnny was alright, moments I thought he might be sincere, but I just wasn't completely sold. It wasn't until after I got the devil ending for the first time and started exploring more of the character's plot lines that I found I began to like Johnny more. One of the biggest points to connect with him comes from doing his quest line, which opens up after you finish the quest's tapeworm. And once you pursue it through the Chip and In quest, well, Johnny starts to really come together. Even though it starts off with him taking your body on a bender, as he gets completely wasted and even gets a tattoo. The whole drunken night is a blur of Johnny hunting down this guy named Grayson. After getting into a car wreck, Johnny calls Rogue in the wee hours of the morning, and when my V finally woke up, she realized that Rogue now knew she was harboring Johnny Silverhand in her head. You end up doing a mission with Rogue to find Grayson in an attempt to get to Atom Smasher. You find out that Grayson was holding onto a lot of Johnny's things, and he even tells you what happened to Johnny's body. You drive out to the oil fields and have a really sobering talk with Johnny. It's one of the first times where Johnny felt like a real person to me, like he wasn't hiding behind those snarky one-liners and harsh insults, and was just being really authentic. He finally becomes vulnerable as he breaks down before V, coming to the realization that his life ended without so much as a funeral. There's nothing left to even prove that he was ever there. He even admits to needing the symbolic gesture of a gravestone, which is a connecting moment for me. It's the point for me where he admits to being human. V will inscribe Johnny's initials on a piece of scrap metal as proof that he existed. It makes him feel a little better, but he wants to know what V would have to say about him if it were his real grave. And this is a pivotal point in the relationship and the game as well, because your responses here can boost your relationship immensely with Johnny and even unlock a secret ending. I think what's best about this scene, though, is Johnny's admission that he's messed a lot of things up in his life, used people to his own benefit, and just been a selfish jerk. He comes right out and says how much V means to him, though, and how he doesn't want to screw up what you two have. How you're the closest person to him, and how even his old friends couldn't stand to be in the same room with him. It's like his imprisonment inside V's head has forced him to have an intimate and meaningful relationship with someone that he was never able to have before when he was alive. It's kind of beautiful, really. And the idea of having the constant support of someone else always with you is so appealing. I don't know about all of you, but many of us can have some pretty negative voices that accompany us on a daily basis. They might not always be nagging in your head, but they will wait for that moment when you're alone and feeling down. Imagine if instead of that awful voice that always thinks you'll fail, you hear the voice of your trusted friend. Or, if I had my way, a lover who cared for you instead. I think that would be pretty frickin' amazing, don't you? I think the most beautiful thing Johnny says during the whole exchange is this.
Still feel like you can't breathe in here?
Nah, not saying it's great, but it's different. Sometimes when I wake up, feels like I'm back for a while.
What do you mean, back?
Well, like I got this body to myself, like I'm free. Seconds later, feels like I'm missing something really important. Then I realize you're there, always were, and this stupid wave of relief washes over me.
I mean, maybe I'm just a big sap, but that nearly brings a tear to my eye. To have that level of trust in a person is incredible. Despite everything Johnny went through, being with V has helped him immensely. Even though the whole situation is so messed up, being together has benefited both of them greatly. So it's here that I honestly believed that Johnny truly wanted to save V's life. Like, I just knew it in my gut, and it was probably the first time I actually trusted him. Now, there is a lot more to Johnny, and I could honestly do several more videos on him, the different endings, and even the love triangle with Rogue, but I can't fit it all into one video. I'll have to spread that out. But of all the characters in the game, though, even Takamura, who you know I fangirl hard for, Johnny is the best relationship of everyone. There's just no competition. It doesn't even have to be about a romance either. The relationship kind of transcends that in a lot of ways because it's just so amazing what they accomplished with a video game character. I mean, to make you feel so close to someone through the interactions of the entire game, it's just, blows my mind. Now, I still think a romance would be breathtaking.
You're breathtaking!
I mean, could you even imagine how smutty that shit would get? It would just be like a clusterfluff of throwing that digital image of Johnny against the wall and all over V's apartment. I mean, it would be insane. I just had a thought. You know how they have those remote control vibrators that they always make out to be some scandalous public style display? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like some chick has it in her pants and she goes out to dinner and whoever's holding the remote, they just turn it on randomly. Whole time she's eating, it's like spontaneous vibrations. I cannot believe I'm talking about this right now. I mean, where have I even seen this? I don't know. I can't even remember. It was probably somewhere inappropriate. But my point in bringing it up is that if you were romancing Johnny and he was in your head all the time and could potentially control aspects of your body, who's to say he couldn't be like one of those toys all on his own? That could be seriously hot. There are a lot of possibilities and places my imagination is currently going to. And I'm sure all the people who wanted to romance Johnny are thinking the exact same thing, am I right? So don't act like I'm weird or anything. Like, hey V, I see you're alone there. Sadly, I don't think it's ever going to happen though. At some point modders made it so you could replace Johnny's image with a Joy toy. They actually did that with a lot of different models, including Takamura and Yori, but I don't know if the mods are still around or what. There was apparently this whole dispute where CDPR got all pissy, thinking the actors would not appreciate their models being used in non-contractual ways. I know they took down the Johnny one because it wasn't even available when I got my mods, and since then I believe they took down even more, including the Takamura ones. But you can still find a lot of other NPCs on Nexus, although I have to say it's disappointing that Ozob isn't even here. Ugh. And really, I can't say I understand CDPR's over-the-top reaction to it. Even Keanu sounded giddy when this interviewer asked him about people modding his character so that they could do the do with him. I mean, listen to him.
The most requested hack to make a character that you could have sex with be your character.
Yes.
And it got to a point where the game developer said, no, you can't do this because we're not sure if we have permission to do this.
Oh.
I mean, listen to the guy. He sounds disappointed. I mean, he is disappointed. Does it sound like someone who's offended by the idea? And I remember someone else telling me that Takamura's voice actor was also very alright with the idea of voicing a romance, although I could never find an actual article about it. So who knows what all this uptight hullabaloo is all about? To me, it seems like CDPR is either doing it because they're actually worried about the actors, or maybe they're doing it because they're planning to release a huge romance mod and they don't want anyone to get it for free before it drops? Huh? I know that's huge wishful thinking on my part. I really just wish CDPR would listen on the romance front, though, and give the fans what they want. And man, what a wild-ass ride it would be getting to romance Johnny. Whew, I mean, damn, I've got a hangover just thinking about it. So please tell me how you felt about Johnny's relationship in the game. Did you love him? Did you hate him? Was it more the bromance for you, or did you have a huge crush on him? Thanks again to my amazing Patreons for your support. Joining my Patreon is a great way to support the channel, and you get access to a bunch of stuff over there, including my books, which are laced with smut and romance, in case that's your thing. There's a link for Patreon and all that stuff down below in the info section. I also want to thank everyone who takes the time to come and watch these long-winded rants I make, like Gabriel and Lord Dangles, and thanks to the people who have even managed to make it to some of my streams. It's been fun hanging out with you all, even if I still feel pretty immature at streaming itself. I think that about wraps it all up. Love you guys. See you later.